Welcome to the Relationship Toolbox, a show about the skills we need to build healthy relationships with others. Today we are going to discuss a topic that's very appropriate for the holiday season, and that is giving gifts. But not just any gift, the right gift. Of course, we're not just talking about the Christmas gifts under the tree, but also the gift of love and appreciation that we are trying to express to our loved one or to our children. Marsha, have you ever had the experience, it's usually an uncomfortable experience, of giving a gift to someone that you love and really trying to show your caring and love for that person, and you give them the gift, and then when you see the expression on their face, you see only confusion or maybe disappointment, and you hear the perfunctory, "Oh, thank you." And you know, oh man, that did not go the way I intended it.
Yeah. You know, we give all time, but at this time of year in particular, regardless of what your traditions are, it is a time of giving. And there's a lot of pressure on both the person who's giving the gift and the recipient to, perform that choreography of this is the perfect gift, so thank you. And it sometimes doesn't land, and we need to invest in some research in people beforehand in order for it to kind of hit the target. But it can be disappointing, and you kind of need to calibrate the expectations and the desires. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Exactly, that's our topic. In fact, sometimes I've even experienced not just disappointment, but a look of hurt or annoyance. That, why would you give me this?
Do you not know me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, when the gift is right on, then it can show exceptional sensitivity and knowledge of that other person.
Right.
And it can be a message of love and communicate like intimacy and appreciation and that you are valued.
And then we're right on target.
Right on target.
Yeah.
And again, we're not necessarily talking about tangible physical gifts, because we're going to really kind of break out the nuance of giving.
Yes.
Because you can give in other different ways.
Exactly, yeah. So what often goes wrong? Why do we often end up giving the wrong gift? And the answer to that is we're not paying attention to the love language of the person we're trying to express that to.
Yeah.
So our gift misses the mark. And extended research on this has shown that it doesn't have to be a hit or miss thing. And oftentimes I think we just think, do we get it or not? Or what's happening here?
Is it the right color, the right size, the right value, when we're talking about a gift? But
yeah, exactly. So there is a science to it. And actually the person who has been responsible for actually labeling these things and refining it is by the name of Gary Chapman.
Yeah.
He's a researcher and psychologist, and he has discovered 5 major ways that the individuals accept expressions of love. And he has found not only that there are 5 ways, basic ways for this, but that we tend to favor one over the others, possibly 2. But it's definitely a priority of one's. So let's label those. Let's talk about those and what they are, so that we get a sense of, what is this science telling us about what we can do?
It's a great classification to have.
It is.
Because it guides you.
Yes.
When you're trying to communicate through a gift or giving with a person that you care about.
Even communicating with someone about what their love language is, you are also engaging in an act of caring.
Right.
So forth.
So what are they?
Well, the first one that he labeled was words of affirmation. Now, what do we mean by that?
So these are written or spoken verbal expressions of love and affection or appreciation. Like the words, the actual language.
Okay. The next one that he identified was actually receiving gifts. But this is tricky, isn't it?
It is, because the gift, when it's given, and if it represents a personal knowledge about the recipient, it becomes a symbol of love and appreciation. If it's aligned, if you've done the work to understand that person.
So their response would be, boy, you know me well.
You know me well. You've listened, you've observed, you've paid attention,
Yes.
and you hit the mark.
Yes. A third one is quality time.
Yeah, I think this is my
Is-
my preferred language. Having a loved one's full and undivided attention and presence, and communicating that relationship is important, and just showing up and being there is like, wow, that really feeds me when that happens.
It's so rare these days because we're doing this usually as we're
Yeah.
talking with them.
And we
So
have busy lives, and we're across the country from each other,
that's
so
right.
it's hard.
Okay. And a fourth one is acts of service.
Yeah, doing things that are positive, that are not required, with maybe some little planning, shows me that you appreciate me. You're spending your time and your energy and your resources to assist me in making my burden lighter, my work easier. Yeah.
And the last one he identified was physical touch. Now, a lot of people might think, sex.
Yeah, well, that can be a component of it, but there's such a wide, rich array of what physical touch can be. It can just be gentle touch. It's that physical connection. It could be hugging or holding hands or snuggling while you're watching TV, but it's a physical connection that makes me feel safe and secure in our relationship.
Okay. So again, reviewing those, words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time, acts of service, and physical touch.
Yeah.
Why so significant?
Well, when you're aware of your partner's preferred way of being shown love and affection, and you adapt to it, it can really make your partner feel amazing. And it can help my well-being and my partner's well-being and enhance the relationship when we're speaking on the same vibration and on the same language. Like, this is what you need, and I noticed, and this is what I'm giving you.
Yes.
And it makes us stronger.
And isn't that what we're looking for in a partner anyway? Someone who knows us better than anyone else, and we can talk to in a way that we might not be able to another person.
Yeah.
So this sort of reinforces that, doesn't it, with it?
Yeah.
But we also need to be alert that in addition to tuning in to the love language of the partner we're trying to impress with our love, we need to be clear about what our own love language is, because it can backfire in reverse the same way.
Yeah,
So
because I think instinctually we give others what we want,
Yes.
because that we think, well, this is what they want because this is what I like. And there is kind of a mutual expectation and responsibility to be aware of your own preferences, to communicate them in a
Yes.
loving, gentle, matter-of-fact way, to be aware of the others. And you may not be offering what you want, but what they want.
Yeah, that's the trick, isn't it?
It is, and it's actually, in fact, many people were raised with, the idea of the golden rule and,
Oh, yes.
do unto others the way you want
As you
them.
would have them do
Yeah,
unto you,
exactly.
yeah.
And, depending, and that rule shows up in a lot of traditions and a lot of spiritual systems. But actually, there's the platinum rule, which is kind of a new idea, is to give other people what they want, not necessarily what you want, but to really investigate them in a deep way, and to know them and to respect them and to honor them with what they wish, and for them to do the same for you. So
Yeah, and that is really, it's a difficult concept, I think, for the reason that you talked about. We've been trained so well to think of do the same, but to give someone a gift of love in a way that would not be the same for us, it almost is contradictory to what we want to do.
well,
And
it's
yet-
it takes a little bit more effort, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Because
This
you
one-
know what you like, and you assume that it's a nice thing for everybody, and it isn't. It's not a bad thing to offer
Right.
others.
It
But
helps us
just,
show our differences.
it's going that extra mile to
Yes.
say, I know what you want, and I've gone to the trouble to provide that for you.
Right. I
Because
love you well
matter.
enough to give you what you want, not
You
what
matter.
I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
This one is when I first learned about love languages. What an eye-opener it was in my own relationship with my wife, because I would think when hers was more act of service, and I was thinking, oh, you know, why that's no big deal. We do these things anyway. So when I suddenly realized, oh, this means an act of love to her, then it changed my whole thinking about doing these things around the house, that I thought, why should I be doing these things? You know, we're just sharing our tasks around the house. But knowing that this is a sign of love and caring, it took on a whole different realm. And now I can do it without that feeling of, why am I doing this? It's clear why I'm doing it.
This isn't my domain,
Yes, exactly. So, here's the key question, I guess. Now that I know about love languages, these 5 types, how do I find out what my partner's love language is?
Yeah. Well, after talking about it, you could ask, you know, what do you think? Because they haven't been classified before. I mean, I just discovered them 3 years ago. And I think, wow, aha. You can explicitly have that conversation. Hey, did you know about this? And what do you think? Where do you think you fall? And you could prompt that conversation by saying, this is where I think I fall. This seems to be the first and second kind of ways that I would like to be acknowledged. And that could kind of lead the conversation. There are surveys online. Mr. Chapman offers that. You could also just test. You could be in like a laboratory and show different types of appreciation and see what kind of feedback you get.
Sure, sort of
see
observation.
Try, you know, practice and
now
see
that
what
you're
the response
looking for
is.
it, if you know what to look for, you'll get some information.
You'll get some, you'll get a feedback loop and say, this works, this is preferred. So you could try some of those.
Those would be the key ways, okay. So I guess now, once I find out my partner's love language, or maybe there are 2 that I can focus. Of course, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't show love in the other ways too.
Sure.
But I need to concentrate on at least 1 or 2 of these areas. So what would be particular acts of love or things I could do within each one of these love languages, so I'm informed to say, oh, now I know what to do.
Examples, yeah.
Examples, yeah. So could you, let's start out with the words of affirmation. What would be some examples of that?
First of all, I would preface it by it has to be sincere, because if it's not sincere, then
it's even worse.
It's worse. But you could talk about being proud. I'm so proud of you for whatever accomplishment. It could be small, it could be large. Or, you know what, you really look great today. You look fit, you look happy, that color just shows your eyes off, whatever.
And it's important to be specific about that too, isn't it? Rather than you look nice today, you can really add a to that, but buy this, you know, that color or whatever you say.
That new scarf you got yourself, it looks great. Or you really inspire me. I take my energy and my inspiration and my motivation.
And again, being specific about that. When you do these particular things, it really inspires me. So the person really gets a sense of, not only am I an inspiration, but I know what I do that inspires.
And it's not perfunctory. It's not just a patent statement.
Exactly.
It's connected with specifics. You can praise your partner in public, because that kind of amplifies it. You know, you don't want to do it in that's a delicate balance. But to show publicly, it kind of makes the person feels good.
Just to give a little, when I see that happen, I think, wow, they must have a really nice relationship, because you know how they're
affirming,
appreciating each other.
Thank your partner. Just say thank you. Appreciate. Like, wow, I really appreciate the fact that you shoveled the path, or you scraped my car and it was ready for me when I had to go to work, or thank you for making coffee this morning, or whatever. You know, and you could do the same thing in a text. You know, wow, I found the surprise cookie in my lunch, you know, or whatever. Or so those are examples for words of affirmation.
Okay. Now let's go to receiving gifts. Again, we said this is the tricky one. So give me some examples of what might I do if I'm trying to address that love language in my partner.
Yeah, and keep in mind that gifts can be purchased or found or created. They don't have to be extravagant. But you should know why the gift is going to be meaningful. And you don't have to wait for a special time. You can do it anytime. It could be celebrating with a series of gifts at a time, or ask your partner to make a list, and then you could just kind of satisfy that throughout the year. Okay. Or buy something at a craft store, or something that person would like to do or to make, or a special treat when you're at the grocery store. Like, you can reach for that decadent thing, or maybe it's not something you like, but you know that the other person likes, and you just throw it in the basket. You could get a magazine, just a hobby, support their interests, a gift card, a framed photo of a memory of something you did together, or just, it could be any kind of token.
I noticed when my wife and I were doing Christmas shopping, she noticed a craft that she liked and picked it up and looked at it, and then she put it back down and no, I really don't need this. And boy, that registered with the love language in terms of, ooh, yeah.
She admired it, but maybe hesitated, because it's the time of giving others, and she wasn't going to give to herself, but you.
So later on, I went back and purchased that and had that as a Christmas gift. Again, I would have thought of it that way, except understanding this, I thought there's an opportunity with it. So again, being aware of this type of structure of looking at it really can help. So what about, you said quality time is one of yours. So
this is me, yeah.
What's that like, Marsha?
Give of yourself uninterrupted, without the phone, without anything kind of distracting, showing up, making plans to do something together, because I like it in the moment, and I also like to kind of reminisce and to remember that memory of it. You could plan a weekend, you could go out on a date, or even just sitting together and talking. You might think, not talking in a way like the words of affirmation, but just exchanging information in a non-transactional way. So much of our communication with others, particularly people that we live with, are like operational. What time's dinner? Are you going to the dump? What about the snow tires? Can you walk the dog? And it's transactional. But really talking about soulful, deeper things, dreams, fears, worries, anticipation, just sharing stuff.
We certainly have found in our work that people often say, I want to feel heard.
Oh, yeah.
So
heard
many ways.
And understood.
Yes.
And you want to understand the other person, because if you don't understand, there's some barrier there, and you can't access that person. And spending time and just sharing, like, what happened to you today that was great, or what happened to you that was not great.
And I care about it, and I'm going to spend my time, my energy, focusing on what you have to say.
You could read a book together, you could watch a TV program together, you could take a class together, you could go for a walk. But just kind of spending time and knowing each other in a deeper way.
What about acts of service?
Wow, these are endless. Anytime you say, how can I help you? Or let me help you. Especially if it's not a requirement. A surprise car wash, taking some unpleasant task off that person that they normally do, or, working out a tech problem, or, hey, why don't I take the kids so that you can go to yoga, or you can relax, you've had a hard day, making a meal, particularly if it isn't your turn. Just doing something unexpected that was not required, that is helpful to make life lighter for that person. It's good.
And the last one, physical touch.
Yeah, and again, we hugs, kisses. It can be affectionate, non-sexual contact. When we think of physical, that's the first thing that people might go to. Snuggling, just getting up and greeting somebody instead of waiting for them to come to you and giving them a hug, putting your arm around each other, just kind of touching, dancing, or maybe even getting something for your partner that has kind of that physical aspect to it. That
warmth.
Like a new robe or a snuggly blanket or something that could be an extension, knowing that, or there's so many like cool massagey things these days too.
Yes.
Like, there are things that can help a person feel good.
Within their love language, So it's obvious, I guess, that we all as human beings need to experience love with it. And I guess the point that Chapman was making is that we all have sort of what he calls a fuel tank, or a love tank, he called it, that needs to be replenished. So when these acts of love go in, and they are within the love language of the person we're trying to express this to, it really registers and the tank is filled. When we miss the mark, or we just aren't paying attention at all and not bothering to fill the tank, then it depletes itself and goes out. So when our tank is full, we are likely to feel love, joy, and confidence and enthusiasm. And these feelings can sustain us through times when things are not necessarily going well, or when we're just experiencing stress in our life. When our tank is empty or low, we can feel insecure, unhappy, ignored, unappreciated. And even more devastating is that when a partner is carrying an empty tank, they are more likely to behave in ways that empty the tank of other people.
Yeah, it just feeds itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So not only are these different languages effective pathways of expressing love and caring, but they also are very sensitive and places where we can do harm if we're not aware. And that's also important to know. Even if you're not actively giving and filling the tank, let's be aware of when we are actively depleting that area where folks really want to get the appreciation and the love.
Okay, so they're really sensitive in that area.
Yeah,
and boy, that is a temptation perhaps to zing somebody knowing it. So
when you know them. So
let's look
for
at
each
some.
language, there's behaviors that we should avoid.
Okay, all right.
So for instance, can you give us the ones for words of affirmation?
Well, obviously insults,
Yeah.
unkind words, sarcasm, and criticism all can really hurt. So someone with that love language of affirmation, that could hurt them far more than someone who doesn't have that love language. Someone may be accepting the sarcasm who doesn't have that love language, and it rolls right off.
Slough it off, yeah. So what about for if you like to receive gifts?
And as we pointed out there, the gifts really need to show, in this case, an understanding, a familiarity with the person giving, the person who's receiving it. So if it doesn't, it not only misses the mark, it can come across almost as an insult, because why don't you know me well enough to know this isn't.
And you could just totally forget an occasion and not give a gift, and that would be a big slight.
Yes.
Quality time.
Yeah, that one I think is pretty obvious when we are talking with someone, but our eye contact is going someplace else. We're actually looking someplace else, or people just get a sense that, I better get what I have to say out quickly because in a second this person's going to be gone.
Right.
It really needs to be my time, my effort, my energy is on you.
And also making time for someone.
Yes.
And I think that's really hard to navigate during the holidays. Especially if you're spread thin with lots of family members.
Yes.
What about acts of service?
This is the one that got me a lot that I didn't realize, but it's doing tasks for someone to relieve them of things that they normally do. If you do it just from a sense of obligation, that doesn't have that effect. It doesn't come across as an act of love. But when you say, let me do this, knowing that, you take one more thing off my shoulder to do for the day, thank you. Or you've been through a stressful day, let me do the dishes, or let me make the meal. Something like that can really show love, especially over a period of time.
And physical touch?
That one again is the non-sexual usually. Just that greeting, that making physical contact with somebody, because it's almost like their tactile sense is just on fire.
Wake up.
Yeah, it's the minute you touch, boom, it just registers in their body with it, and it registers as love and caring. And again, we have to be careful of that because there may be a difference in gender there, where men might be more likely to see that as a signal of sex when the female may not.
That's another program.
Yes, that's another program, yes.
Well, I think we also need to mention, and as we have before, that these different types of showing appreciation can be applied to our children, to our friends, to our coworkers, our neighbors. We wouldn't necessarily be saying love to coworkers, although you may have over time acquired that kind of deep appreciation, but more of a sense of appreciation, and they're adapted for all of these occasions.
Yes.
So as we conclude today's show, the Relationship Toolbox, we're wondering if you know what your preferred language of love or an appreciation is, and if you know your partner's. This was a particularly time of giving, but do the work now while it's still fresh in your mind, so that the next time you're going to hit the mark, so that you know that your tank is full, your partner's tank is full, and that we're not running on empty. We look forward to seeing you again at the Relationship Toolbox.